Lunio. We've assessed the whole market in this. So over to Chester, who's going to tell you all about it.
We'll watch the cable. Yeah, you do need a microphone. Emily's got it. Now John's finished making promises on the behalf of his product team. I'll take over, I guess.
Yeah, I can make promises on behalf of your product as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. I'm sure Neil would be very happy about that. Morning, guys. Nice to meet you all. I'm Chester, the VP of Partnerships here at Lunio. Just quick show of hands, like how many of you guys currently are investing money on Meta, investing money on Google, or have done in the past if you're not in your current roles? Okay, so a good proportion. So before we come on to talk about how Lunio leverages AI, I just want to probably just bring us back to reality a little bit. And I kind of hate to break it to you, but everybody in this room that put your hand up just then has been leveraging AI for the past 10 years plus, right? So all of the major platforms that we invest in, whether that be Google, whether that be Meta, they are all leveraging AI and have been doing so for a long period of time. The only difference that is happening now is that we're now beginning to evolve, and the, I guess, democratization of AI for day-to-day use within all of our roles is probably the key difference versus what it has been in the past, where it was only accessible to those big platforms in order to be able to drive, results delivery for everyone here. So I just thought we'd start off with that point, and then I'll come on to talk about how Lunio is leveraging AI. But ultimately, this is it's just an evolution, essentially the same as many things are here as well. So we're going to talk about the hidden causes of wasted ad spend, and I think that throughout the past sort of 10, 20 years of kind of digital innovation, the emergence of AI, the evolution into Gen AI, the democratization of AI, sort of trackability, different delivery platforms, big media networks, a lot is still the same as what it was sort of many, many years ago. And I'm talking sort of hundreds of years ago. And so I wanted to bring this quote up today. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this guy, but there's a guy called John Wanamaker, around in sort of the mid 19th century. He's famous for a couple of things. The first one being he developed the price tag. So back in sort of the 19th century, huge haggle culture to try and improve, I guess, profit margins on pricing, market stalls, etc. He developed the price tag to try and increase that profit margin. He's also extremely well known for this quote here, which is, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. And so that's what I was referring to before, which is that despite all of the digital innovation, despite all of the advancement, this quote is as true today as what it was back then. And so we're going to come on to talk about sort of some of the different variations of wasted ad spend and sort of challenges that everyone in this room is facing on a daily basis. So the first one, the one that probably most people associate with wasted ad spend is the, investing in customers that were coming to your site anyway. Often referred to in the industry as non-incremental investment, right? So we're spending money on people that were coming to your site regardless, and therefore we didn't necessarily need to invest in them. The biggest challenge around that is we don't know which customers were coming and which they weren't, right? And measurement, trackability, attribution is a key part in what makes this part extremely difficult, but nonetheless, a form of wasted ad spend that we're all trying to innovate and get around on a daily basis. We then talk about poor campaign setup, poor audience selection, poor keyword groupings, poor creative, just essentially bad execution of what we do on a day-to-day basis. That is still a form of wasted ad spend that, again, we're all trying to mitigate on a daily basis, ultimately trying to increase the effectiveness of everything that we do. Now I'm going to come on to talk about another variation of wasted ad spend, and this variation is something that is extremely close to Lunio and ultimately directly aligned with the challenge that we're trying to solve at Lunio. And that is wasted ad spend in the form of invalid traffic. Invalid traffic can mean many things to many different people. What that means to us is essentially non-human traffic that comes from in the form of bots, low value customers, like real humans, that ultimately have an extremely low propensity to go on and purchase, and they just show really strange behaviors, and they're essentially, I guess, depleting your investments, and particularly where CPCs are getting more and more expensive, cost of media is getting more and more expensive. That is becoming super, super critical. Some of you might be sat thinking, okay, I kind of get it, there's bots, but really, what is the scale of that problem? Is it something that we should really care about? And so I just want to talk about sort of some of those key stats. And so if we look at it at a very macro lens, 2022, and the reason it's at 2022 is that's the last time WPP published their figures. But essentially, there was approximately $714 billion spent on advertising globally. That's both on and offline. We're seeing a really strong CAGR within digital media investment. So 391 billion is now spent on digital, approximately 54% of total. And that's continuing to grow at around a 17.5%, 18% CAGR each year. And so, that's becoming a bigger part of our media mix. The extremely scary part of that is that approximately $54.5 billion of that total 391 billion is wasted on bot and invalid fraudulent traffic every single year. I'll just let that sink in just for a second. That's approximately around 8.5% of that total investment. Now, when we talk about, we had the guys from KPMG talk about retail. Retail where margins are extremely tight, whilst they made you huge numbers from a revenue perspective, when this actually comes down, down to your PC1, PC2, PC3 margin, EBITDA level, 54 billion is a huge swing on whether a business makes money or whether it doesn't make money in a given year. Margins are being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. Retail is a race to the bottom in terms of pricing. And if you're hemorrhaging 8.5% of your budget on waste every single year, that's extremely scary. Okay. Cool. There is a full report that we publish each year in partnership with Integral Ad Science, if those that are familiar with Integral Ad Science, to try and really understand the scope of this challenge, the scale of the problem at hand. If you want to scan the QR code now, I'm sure John will probably share the slides after so that you can get access to it. But you'll see a full breakdown here in terms of wasted investment due to fraudulent bot traffic at a sort of channel level, placement type, variances between PMax, variances between search, Meta, sort of the big offenders, etc. You'll be able to access that in this report here. There are obviously some additional headwinds that we're all facing from a performance marketing perspective as well. A big one is rising costs. We've already talked about that. CPCs are continuing to inflate year on year. Google have got antitrust cases against them in terms of inflating costs for their own commercial benefit. Competition is getting more and more fierce. The landscape's changing in terms of the search types, etc., that are available, the inventory that's available. We're also losing a huge amounts of visibility and control, right? We've just talked about getting greater transparency, increasing visibility in order for you to be able to act. The platforms that we're working with on a daily basis are moving towards these black box solutions, whether that be PMax, demand generation, and ultimately we're being told to give our budget to those platforms and don't worry about it, we'll take care of it, we'll tell you where to spend it, we'll do it for you. We're not going to tell you where that's going. So we're losing visibility, we're losing control. We no longer have a full visibility and understanding of where we're actually spending, what's it being spent on. And that's a massive problem, right? And then the final one is there's an element of dirty data, right? Is that the AI models that we're all developing, the audience builds that we're having, all of this technology that we've got integrated into our stack, a lot of it is only as good as the inputs that we have going into it. And so if we have bad quality data going in, bad audiences, bots going into our data set, it skews our bidding algorithms, it skews our ability to be able to build sort of high quality seed audiences for lookalikes, remarketing audiences for remarketing purposes. It skews our ability to make really robust analytics decisions when a user is on site. We're working with a major retailer in the UK at the moment. They have a massive retail media arm. Big brands are investing millions of pounds into their retail media arm, but they're making decisions and encouraging their customers to invest decisions based on analytical data that is skewed on site. They're saying that one widget outperforms the other, but actually we have helped them be able to identify that actually it's bots that are skewing the analytics on site, and therefore, there is a shift in that. And so dirty data is equally a big problem. I'll come on to talk a little bit more about Lunio. So the number one role of Lunio is to ultimately try and increase the quality of traffic to site. By increasing the quality of traffic to site, we hope to have a subsequent impact on ultimately trying to enabling you guys to maximize the marketing effectiveness and your long-term marketing effectiveness. Our product, the way that I tried to look at it, is Lunio is the total product. Inside of Lunio, there are 3 core features. The first feature is all centered around transparency. We have a proprietary technology that leverages an advanced random forest machine learning model to be able to ingest clickstream data and be able to determine whether a user is valid, invalid, or suspicious. We categorize that data, we organize it, and we ultimately try to give visibility against a metric that the platforms won't give to you themselves. We allow you to try and hold them to account. We allow you to monitor this over time. Are you increasing? Is your invalid traffic rate increasing? Is it decreasing? What is the overall macro trend, and how can you begin to influence that? So that's the first part, is all around transparency. The second part is around empowerment. Once we begin to collect that data, we organize it in a way that's digestible. We put it into different visualizations, into different categories that will ultimately enable all of you guys in the room to begin to identify insights that can potentially be used for optimization. We're giving you an element of transparency. We're giving you an element of control back in a world where it keeps being taken away from us. Okay. You know, a great example here would be, we go all the way down to keyword type. So a great example might be, you have a high offending keyword from an invalid traffic perspective. So traffic volume at face value looks great. It's driving huge loads of traffic to site. I'm not going to remove that from my campaigns. But actually using Lunio and using the AI to be able to identify what is valid and what is invalid, we're able to actually tell you, 10% of that is complete junk. It's rubbish. And so what can you begin to do in terms of experimentation, optimization to try and mitigate that risk? Do you change the match type? Do you increase the ROAS target? Constantly trying to adjust in order to be able to reduce the invalid traffic and increase the quality of traffic, having downstream benefits. The final part of our solution is all centered around quality. In addition to this empowerment and insight and enablement part, we also have an automated protection feature. Because we ingest all of your clickstream data, we assign an IP address and we begin to continue to monitor that IP address. Once we begin to identify an IP address as invalid, we ping those IP addresses or those IP groupings directly to Google, directly to Meta, and we begin to exclude them from being featured in your campaigns in the future. That allows you to automatically mitigate that risk of bots and ultimately reduce the invalid traffic that's coming to site, increasing the quality and maximizing your downstream benefit. You might be questioning, I know that we've got a lawyer in the room, so I'll speak it from an advertising point of view, which won't be super technical, but some of you might be thinking, but is IP address not personally identifiable? Does that not give us conflicts from a GDPR perspective? Right now, we operate under legitimate interest. We're using that IP address for exclusion audiences versus positive targeting. And because it is fraudulent traffic that's being generated for malice, with malicious intent, we're able to exclude that and leverage that data point. And then I'll just leave you with this one slide. When we first onboarded with Ask Bosco and with John and the guys, we only looked after sort of this search part at the top. We were born PPC Protect. We've evolved into become what's now known as Lunio, and the integrations that we now have are extremely vast. We are able to take more and more control and support you with more and more of your media mix, ultimately trying to give you greater visibility, greater transparency, empower and provide improvements in quality of traffic, benefiting downstream. I'll pass back over to John, but thanks everyone.